One Bills Live, Steve Tasker, Matty Glab. I want to tell all of our viewers, or viewers, that's the old days in the simulcast, the listeners here today to today's show, gear up for episode 2 of Captain Circle, presented by Labatt Blue Light. The second of 3 episodes are going to feature our next guests, Jim Kelly, Kyle Williams, Mike Pekka, and Mike Foligno, and will be available to watch on the Sabres and Bills YouTube channels and Facebook pages July 26th at 7 p.m. Make sure you tune in so you can cheer to the captains. Jim Kelly is actually on the radio with us now. Jim Kelly, Steve Tasker, and Matty Glab here at Buffalo on One Bills Live. How you doing, bud? Are you feeling good? How's the pandemic treating you?
Pretty much like everybody else. Crazy, wild, but you know what? Getting to spend a lot of quality time with the family and getting, like most people, probably getting a lot of things done they would never have been able to do, like clean out your storage, clean out, throw away a bunch of stuff, all those, things that people would love to get to but never have time, but we've had time. So, but the part it's just driving me nuts is you can't really turn the TV on without, bumming out that there's no sports. And that, for me, I mean, yeah, to a certain point now with baseball, but overall, it's I have to have sports in my lifetime, but that's just, me, and I know that's a lot of my friends.
Well, I know this, too. One thing I've got to ask you, because all our listeners want to know, and everywhere I go, I get asked about it. How you feeling, bud?
I'm doing good. I can't complain. As a matter of fact, I have my next MRI next week, which is huge. And, you always – that little, when it's done, you get a clean bill of health that makes you feel good and makes your family feel good. And, but we don't stop praying for health, not only for us, but for the people that we know that are going through some tough times. So right now I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking.
Jim, I had so much fun filming Captain Circle with you and Kyle and Michael Pekka and Mike Foligno. What was your takeaway from that hour-long conversation? I mean, you and Kyle and the 2 players from the Sabres, there were some greats on that call, and it was really cool to hear about how leadership is so similar and also so different at the same time, from football to hockey.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I do remember, Foligno, of course, back in the day, and of course, Michael Pekka, the fights with, Rob Ray and him and, some of the other Sabres. It was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot about those 2 individuals. And, when I spoke about Kyle, I mean, I really took that to heart about, and I'm sure Steve would agree with this, that I really have never heard a leader, a captain speak as powerful than Kyle has before games, after games, and really trying to make sure that everybody knew where he was coming from. Then Kyle Williams, he's an amazing leader. He's probably one of the best I've ever heard speak after a game, but it was a lot of fun, that's for sure.
We're talking to Hall of Fame quarterback Jim Kelly. And Jim, you keep your hand on the pulse. I mean, you're in the know about all this football stuff that's going on, the negotiations. It looks like they're going to get a deal. We're optimistic that the final economic questions about the players and the season and the salary cap and all that they're all going to get all that ironed out. What's your gut feeling on what this season's going to look like?
You know what? I'm bumming out a little bit. For me personally, and I don't know about you, Steve, but back when I even played, one of the first things I always did was look who we play away, and then we knew who we played away, but what time of year, and I always knew that we would want the Miami Dolphins to come to Buffalo in December, and this year it's in January. And for me, now that I don't play, that I do travel some games with the Bills. I thought about going to San Francisco and then take a little vacation with the wife, Napa Valley for a little while. Then, we played in Las Vegas, and I thought about heading there, maybe hit the casinos a little bit. I'm not a big gambler. If I lose, $200-300, that's a lot of money. And then, your typical Nashville, what we did last year as far as team-wise, we pretty much handled them to a certain point, beating them on the field. But off the field, the Bills Mafia was just out of control. They were awesome. I mean, 90% of all the bars and everything were full of Buffalo Bill fans. So that in itself, I think a lot of people bumming, frustrated that they might not be able to go to those games, which it doesn't look real good. And then you start thinking about, playing. You think about the home games, what an advantage it is to have, the 72,000 Buffalo Bill crazy wackadoodles that are cheering you on and yelling when your opposing team has the ball. But when you travel, it's good that you don't have to worry about some of the opponents that really had the loud, fans that you as a quarterback would have to make sure your receivers, as you well know, Steve, can hear your cadence or hear your audibles and things like that. But it's not going to be the same with, whether it's home or away. But those are a couple advantages and disadvantages that I see. And probably more than anything is for your typical fan that enjoys taking their vacation to Miami at certain times of year. So I don't know how it's going to happen, what they're going to do as far as with the players in training camp, the players, during the regular season. If somebody all of a sudden gets sick, yeah, you have to quarantine them, but how many guys on your team gets quarantined with that? So it's pretty crazy. And sometimes all the stuff that you hear, through the media and everything, sometimes you think, are they just saying it to be negative? And I don't even want to get into the political part of it, but, sometimes you think it's really a bunch of wackadoodles wanting to really make it look bad.
Let's put yourself back in your playing days. Let's pretend you're about to take the field in 2020, preparing for a season with the Buffalo Bills. How would you approach a season like this? I mean, what we know right now for this current team and the NFL is that these guys are supposed to report on July 28th if the NFLPA and the NFL can come to agreement about finances. Right now is what they're trying to get straight. But once they get here, they're going to have to do 14 straight days of testing. And then if that positivity rate is below 5%, they're going to move to every other day. I mean, there's going to be social distancing inside the facilities. Workouts are going to look different. I mean, meetings are going to look different. Practices are probably going to look different. How would you approach this from a player's perspective, just about probably everything you're trying to figure out mentally before you hit the field and can really work on your craft?
Well, Maddie, if you say it the way you just said it, you'd be going crazy. Me as a player, what I would do is just pretty much play by ear. Whatever happens, happens. But you're still going to have to, do your workouts. You're going to still have to throw to your receivers. You're still going to have to do the same thing you've been doing since you became a football player. Is work out. Keep working on your craft. Keep working with the receivers. The linemen will do what they have to do. But me personally, yeah, it's one of those things. It is what it is. We're only one team. There's 31 other teams that have to do the same thing, try to figure it out. But the thing is to try to keep it as normal as you can, even though it probably, of course it won't be. But the thing is, you got to work on your craft. You got to be able to do what those things that you do to make your team better. So, again, you don't know. Even now, you do not know what's going to happen. But the thing is, you don't worry about it. If you keep worrying about it, keep talking about it, and that's when it starts to really, I feel, start to really work on your mental part of the game. So you try to keep everything as normal as possible, and you keep working on what you have to work on as far as your craft and not worry about other guys because you know that they're going to be doing the same thing because this is their job. This is their livelihood, especially the way they pay players now. You know what? These are things that you're doing now to prepare you for when you retire and being able to take care of your family and do things like that. So right now, I'm just, doing what I have to do. And, it might be a little different for new coaches out there or a guy like Stephon Diggs coming in with Josh, not being able to work out with him as much as he probably really would like. But once they do get together, they're going to be working probably, as hard as they ever have. And, the thing is, as I said before, you try to make sure that everybody's on the same page, that when you have the time to work on your craft, that you do it.
We're on the line with Hall of Fame quarterback Jim Kelly here on One Bills Live. Jim, you and I live 5 minutes apart. You live here in Western New York, so do I. We watch this team closely. We're huge fans of the team. We like everything that's going on over at One Bills Drive. Talk a little bit about this roster these guys, they put together a really solid roster. It seems, more importantly, Jim, it seems sustainable. They need to keep it. It seems like they're going to be able to keep this going, this program that they've got going on. What do you think about how good this team could be this year? You know, if they get Josh Norman comes in and becomes a guy that is just as good or almost as good as Tre'Davious White on the other corner. You've got Stephon Diggs coming in to add some depth. And you've got another step. We all anticipate Josh Allen. You know, Josh is going to take another step forward this year. If he has the same step he did, he's going to complete 65% of his passes. His touchdown interception ratio is going to be 3-1. And that's just if he takes another step the way he did last year. What are your thoughts on this team this year?
I love it. I mean, as excited I guess probably the way to look at it is I have not been this excited about our ball club in years. Yeah, you always are optimistic. You look at it, and as you well know, Steve, the key is all the main guys that they brought in, the people they've had here, the star players, the ones that do make a difference every Sunday. By keeping them healthy is probably the main thing. I remember, and I know I've said this before, and I know you remember this also, Steve, is when we took the big step is when James Lofton came and became, part of our roster and part of what we were looking to do is move one step forward. And when he came, it was almost like Diggs coming in. We already had guys, even though you were pretty much, to me, one of the best receivers we had, but we had Andre, we had BB, we had James Lofton, we had Billy Brooks. We had some good players, but until we had Lofton to the outside to go with BB on the other side and Andre in the middle, I don't think we were a complete team. And I think what they have now, if they can keep everybody healthy and they can work on making sure that, they understand what each other's, thinking, I think they're going to be a heck of a football team on offense and defense. Oh, you hit right on, Steve, with Norman and, White on the other side. If those guys can be shut down corners, those guys that we have up front, with Ed Oliver, and guys, I feel, Harrison Phillips is healthy now coming in. I think we should have a heck of a football team. I'm looking forward to it. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like early on we're going to be able to watch any of those in person, but we still have the TV to watch and listen to some of the commentators. And I know that, all the time when I listen to you and the Murph, I used to love it because you guys knew what you were talking about.
I got to get you involved in our Twitter question that we have going on today. So we're thinking if the unexpected happens, the season is going on during a pandemic, and let's say one of these guys tests positive or there's not enough players on one side of the ball. So you have to put a defensive player on offense or an offensive player on defense. So if this were to happen, which Bills player could play on the other side of the ball and what position would they play? I was thinking Trey White would be a great wide receiver and Dawson Knox would be a great linebacker. Who would you say would be good at flipping sides of the ball and why?
Well, I guess you really look at on the wide receiver spot, you'd have to put, of course, a defensive back or vice versa, a wide receiver as DB. I think it'd be a lot easier for a DB being the wide receiver than the wide receiver being the DB. And a linebacker, I would probably look at, putting some type of linebacker as a tight end, like you pretty much said. And I don't know if there's a running back that could play the linebacker, because I know running backs usually don't. At times, I mean, of course, there's always exceptions to the rule. They like to avoid the tackle instead of, trying to run somebody over. So that in itself would be kind of, I'm not sure if they could do it. Harrison Phillips is a heck of an athlete, maybe putting him at tight end, maybe on the goal line. But other than that, you'd have to definitely keep your linebackers being tight end linebacker, and I'm sure most people would agree with that the defensive back could definitely be easier as a wide receiver, and I don't think a wide receiver could be as easy to switch over to playing a DB than vice versa.
There's also something going on, Jim. The New Era Hat Company asked out of their naming rights to the stadium. We had this thing where we were going to get a GoFundMe page going by the Bills Mafia to come up with their own name. Maybe name it the Mafia Park or something like that. Name the field that. What you got any thoughts? What would you name the field?
Oh, my. Put me on a spot now. I have no clue. You know what? I've always loved the Ralph. I don't know why, but
Right.
I've always loved that name. When after Mr. Wilson died, they started calling it the Ralph, and every time I heard people say it, I go, I love that name. They're Ralph. I mean, it goes to show, he's been here. He's the one that founded it. And I don't know how, Tim and Terry feel about that, but I'm sure it probably won't. But I know they loved him. They all got along very well. The Bills Mafia Stadium, that sounds crazy, but I wouldn't argue with it. It's better than calling it, what's the Washington Football Club or something like that.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Oh, boy. No,
Yeah.
we don't need the Buffalo Bills football team. How's that?
Right,
I like
exactly.
the Bills Mafia, but I've always loved the Ralph, that name. So it's bad that it's sad that New Era's going to come up because I'm very close with a lot of guys that work down there, Dave Eichinger, and that's just to name one. Is you well know him also, Steve. But it's a sad day. But this is 2020. There's so many things going on in our country and our world that it's definitely have changed everything.
I've got to take you back to our current roster of this team. We've talked about it a lot this week. The Bills, ESPN released an article, and the Bills are the number one team to return snaps this season. They return the most snaps out of any other NFL team. Number two is the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bills have 88% of their snaps returning. They return all of their coordinators. How important do you think continuity is this season in an off season where all mini camps were canceled and we're not really sure what training camp is going to look like? So how important is it that most of the squad is coming back for this season?
Oh, I love it. And that's one of the things when I talked to Tom Brady before, and we're good friends, and he, number one, that's what he said, the continuity, being able to have the same coaches year after year, being able to never change the offensive system, because for a quarterback to change a system year after year after year, you look at guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick, how many times he's had to change, and try to, do a different system. And I think it's huge, not only for the quarterback, but for the whole team to be able to have the same coaches, the same players, being able to know, what each other's thinking, especially from the quarterback wide receivers point. And, having a center and having the two guards on both sides and the same guys that you're able to communicate offensively, and then defense being able to do things that, you're typically, won't be able to do when you have year after year, you make some changes. So I think it's huge.
I think we lost Jim for a second. It sounded like we just lost him for a minute. He probably is walking around his house. Jim Kelly on the line with us. We've been talking to him. We're asking him about the Bills, the current Bills, and the current state of the National Football League. We also had him on to talk about episode 2 of Captain's Circle. It's going to be presented by Labatt Blue Light. He's going to be on the second installment of that this Sunday with Mike Pekka, Mike Foligno, and also Kyle Williams. And Jim is back on with us. Jim, before we go in, we talked about continuity of the team. And the thing that strikes me about this, I mentioned it right at the top of the interview, that this does seem sustainable. But it only seems sustainable if you can keep the key people in place. Certainly Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane are in line for an extension when that time comes. You've got Tre'Davious White in line, Josh Allen, Tremaine Edmonds. One of the things about the teams that you were on and you were you had your Hall of Fame career with was continuity. We were at the end of no free agency era and at the beginning of free agency. How difficult do you think it's going to be in this day and age to keep the Buffalo Bills sustainably competitive?
Well, you're going to have guys like, I remember them talking a lot about how Tom Brady never took a contract that what made him the highest paid, even though he definitely deserved it. Well, when you're looking at a guy like Patrick Mahomes and all the money he made, that takes away from some of the other guys you might be able to sign. So I think it's going to be difficult. Where the money's going now is just crazy. It's not to say they don't earn it and don't deserve it. I think they do, but it makes it harder to sign top players in order for you to have a team that, competes for that championship every year. You got to keep your star players, but not all the time you're able to do that because of paying the guys, the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, the defensive backs, the pass rusher, guys that make a huge difference on your football team, it's hard to keep all the guys around. So you're going to have to give it a little give and take. But I know agents out there, they don't want to do that. They want to get their player as much as they can get, because they know that if they get their players so much, that's how much is going in their pocket too. So it's going to be tough, but you have to find ways of working around that. And Brandon Bean, I think, has done an unbelievable job being able to do that so far. But again, Josh is, his contract's going to be coming up. Whether you give him an extension this year is very pivotal for him on where he goes from here. I have all the confidence in the world in Josh. I think that he's ready to take that next step forward. So time will only tell, as we all know. But I know it's not going to be as easy as people think it is.
Jim, thanks so much for taking some time. It's great talking to you, and I'm so glad to hear you're doing well. And I can't wait to see you on episode 2 of Captain Circle coming up on Sunday night. Thanks for spending some time with us, bro.
My pleasure, guys. Have a good day.